All right, welcome everybody to the November 13th, 2024 City of Mesa Planning and Zoning Board meeting, public meeting, thank you. We'll begin with a roll call. Chair Ayers is present. Geez, I said that one time before.
Well, it's been the
Keep
election.
giving myself
It's after the election. So
I know,
it's been-
sorry.
There you go.
I'm
You're
tired.
okay.
Vice Chair Pitcher.
Here.
Board Member Peterson.
Here.
Board Member Montez.
Here.
Board Member Blakeman.
Here.
Board Member Carpenter.
Here.
And Board Member Farnsworth.
Here.
All right, as part of the agenda today, we do have a consent agenda. It'll be read into the record and acted on all in one motion. These items will not be discussed individually. And Board Member Montez has offered to read that for us today.
Okay. Items on the consent agenda: to approve the minutes from previous meetings, 2A minutes from October 23rd, 2024 Planning and Zoning meeting. Item 3A, ZON 23-00208, East Market, 32.3 acres located at the northwest corner of South Ellsworth Road and East Ray Road, and the southwest corner of South Ellsworth Road and East Point 22 Boulevard. Site plan development potential review to allow for mixed-use development. Staff recommendations continued to a date uncertain. 3B, ZON 23-00210, East Market Major Budget Transfer, 32.3 acres located at the northwest corner of South Ellsworth Road and East Ray Road, and the southwest corner of southeast corner of South Ellsworth Road and East Point 22 Boulevard. Major land use budget transfer from Development Unit 1 to Development Unit 4 of the Eastmark Community Plan to allow for a mixed-use development. Staff recommendations continue to a date uncertain. Item 4B, ZON 23-00970, Legacy Square, 2.2 acres located at the northwest corner of South Pomeroy and East 2nd Avenue, approximately 250 feet west of South Mesa Drive, rezoned from Downtown Residence 2 and Downtown Residence 3 to Downtown Core. Site plan review and a special use permit to allow for a multiple residence development. Staff recommendation: approval with conditions. Item 4D, ZON 24-00015, 5308 East Main Modern, 2.3 acres located approximately 600 feet east of the northeast corner of North Higley Road and East Main Street. Rezoned from limited commercial to multiple residence 4 with a bonus intensity zone overlay and site plan review to allow for a multiple residence development. Staff recommendation: approval with conditions. 4E, ZON 24-00636, Red Mountain Storage Expansion, 4.2 acres located at 5612 East McDowell Road, major site plan modification and a council use permit to allow for an expansion of an existing mini storage facility. Casa de Amigos Mobile Home Estates. Staff recommendation: approval with conditions. Item 4F, ZON 24-00656, AZ4 expansion, MPCA, 16 acres located at the northwest corner of East Pecos Road and South Mountain Road. Major site plan modification, special use permit, and amending condition of approval number 1 for case number Z15-024 to allow for an expansion to an existing manufacturing plant. Staff recommendations: approval with conditions. Item 4G, ZON 24-00711, Lot 7 at Thomas Road, 1 acre, located at the northwest corner of East Thomas Road and North 55th Place, approximately 2,600 feet west of North Record Road, rezone from light industrial with a planned area development overlay to light industrial with a planned area development and bonus intensity zone overlays and site plan review to allow for an industrial development. Staff recommendations, approval with conditions. Item 4H, ZON 24-00745, Black Rock Coffee Bar, 0.7 acres, located at 1050 South Country Club Drive, major site plan modification for the development of a limited service restaurant with a drive-through facility. Staff recommendation, approval with conditions.
All right, thank
No,
you.
there's more, right?
One, I think so.
Yep, 7, just flip.
Almost there.
Okay, 7A, proposed amendment to Chapter 67 and 87 of Title 11 of the Mesa City Code pertaining to residential zoning application review timeframes. The text amendments include but are not limited to adding timeframes for administrative completeness review for residential zoning applications, adding a process for residential zoning applications that are deemed incomplete, adding a time frame for approving or denying residential zoning applications, providing exceptions from the residential zoning application timeframes, and adding a definition of residential zoning application citywide. Staff recommendation, adoption. Item 7B, proposed amendments to chapters 34 and 87 of Title 11 of the Mesa City Code planning to manufactured home parks and subdivisions and recreational vehicle parks and subdivisions. The text amendments include but are not limited to pertaining dwelling units of conventional construction in manufactured home subdivisions and recreational vehicle subdivisions, modifying the definition of recreational vehicle accessory structure, modifying the development standards for recreational vehicle accessory structures, adding a maximum height for dwelling units of conventional construction, modifying measurements for required yard setbacks and mirror revisions. Minor, thank you, revisions, citywide. Staff recommendations, adoption.
All right.
I think that's it.
Yeah, thank you, Board Member Montez,
Yes.
for reading all of that for us today. So I'm looking for a motion to approve the consent agenda as read. Anybody? Somebody?
Motion.
Is there a second?
Second.
All right, all in favor, everyone, please vote on screen. And that passes unanimously with everybody here. Thank you very much. Okay, so now we're going to move into the rest of the cases, and we'll begin with item, oh my goodness, we have too many pages. 4A. I don't think we need a presentation on these. Yeah, does anybody want the presentation on 4A? I'm seeing no, okay.
I'd like to hear the owner.
You'd like to,
Yeah, I want to ask him about the sound attenuation.
okay, so we do want to invite the applicant up for a question about the sound attenuation for 4A. So we have him online.
I'm being told that we don't see Ryan Alvarez online yet.
Okay, we'll do that.
Chair Ayers, I do want to remind you, we did receive an online request to speak on this item, Lance Earl, and he is on the line.
Oh, we did do that. All right, should we wait till we get? Okay, we'll hold off and do that next one as soon as we get the applicant online.
Okay.
All right, let's go ahead and move to item 4C. Yeah, come on up, Josh, just in case. I don't know if we want to have the full presentation on this one, but I do know we have some comments as well, obviously. Yeah, we do. Yeah, they're going to do it.
All right. Thank you, Chair. This is for ZON 23-01-003, also known as Carmelo by Blandford Homes. This specifically is a request from AG to RS15 PAD. The AG is the proposed rezoning from when it was annexed. There is a concurrent annexation that would accompany this to City Council, and that would change that from the county zoning to the AG, which is our standard practice for all annexations. This request is for the southeast corner of McDowell and Hawes Road. It is located within the county. It is within the general plan designation of neighborhood / specifically desert uplands. Within the desert uplands, it's intended to be a low density residential area, which is committed to that preservation of the natural desert open space. As part of that, developments are either large lots with preservation on each lot, or smaller with open space that's common to all members, and it would be maintained a lower density in the area. Again, this case is under a concurrent annexation, which the proposal is a rezoning from AG, which is that agriculture, to RS15 with a planned area development. Here's an existing photo looking at the southeast from that intersection of Hawes and McDowell. Oh, does not appear moving on the screen. Give me a second. Might be on the downstairs computer. All right, I'll continue with the preliminary plat. I'll try to describe it as best I can. All right, great, it's on screen now. It is 30 acres. Primary access will be from McDowell, that is shown on the north side of this plat. There is a secondary emergency access that is only designed for a fire truck because of that required access to the fire code. It is a total of 65 lots that range from 10,400 square feet to 22,619 square feet. As part of this planned area development, there is quite a few deviations due to that private streets, as well as the overall changes to the lot sizes, and they're as follows. One of the deviations is that request to front onto that private street rather than what is typically required for the city of Mesa, which is on a public street. A maximum lot coverage being from 50 to the proposed 55, as well as the lot coverage also to 55%. A minimum lot area reduced down to 10,400 square feet, as well as a minimum width of 75 square feet, or 70 feet as well. There is a number of changes to the building front setbacks. The request is for the front to be reduced down to 12 feet. The front yard for the garage and carports reduced to 20 if it fronts the road, 12 feet if it fronts the side of that garage. The street side is reduced to 7 when adjacent to a minimum 8-foot wide landscape track. So this would create an area of 15 feet, and this specifically along McDowell, as well as Waterbury. And then you also have a rear reduction to 20 feet for the building or livable space as a whole, and then porches and patios reduced to 15 specifically. So also a reduction into the minimum lot dimensions, instead of being 20 by 22, is on 3 specific models being reduced to 20 by 19, as well as an increase in the wall size. This is specifically, as one of the comments that came out, is the impacts to the neighbors. And in order to reduce that, they're proposing a higher wall to reduce that height impact, as well as a request of 10 feet only if it's on top of a retaining wall. The retaining wall would be 4 feet, and the screen wall would be 6 for a total of 10. And then a reduction in materials required for specifically the Spanish elevations. Due to that architectural style, it tends to be more stucco and would be just accents, so that is in common with other Spanish developments. As part of this outreach, the applicant reached out to property owners as well as HOAs and registered neighborhoods in the area. There was 2 neighborhood meetings held. One was on January 30th of this year, as well as one on April 4th. Throughout those neighborhood meetings, the neighbors came out, were concerned about the density, as well as the overall impacts to the desert open space. Originally, this project was proposed at 81 units, and that has now been reduced down to 65, which is reducing that the density from 2.83 down to 2.27 per dwelling unit acre. Staff finds that the overall project complies with the 2040 Mesa General Plan, Chapter 69 of the MZO for site plan review, Chapter 22 of the MZO for the planned area development overlay, as well as Section 9-6-2 of the City Code for subdivisions for that preliminary plat. Staff recommends approval with conditions. Happy to answer any questions.
Any questions for Josh before we invite the applicant up? No, I think we're good. I'm not sure if the applicant has anything to add to that. We do, let's just go ahead and do the public comment. Actually, let's do that instead. Okay, so I do know we have a few comments on there. Do we have anyone online for this one? No, no online for this one. All right, so I do have a few cards here, it looks like, that would like to speak to this. So what we'll do is invite you up. We ask that you state your name and your address so we know where you live. And then we ask you to hold your comments to about 3 minutes, just to try to get through a lot of the comments that we have today. I appreciate that. So first person that we have for this.
Chair, apologies. You will need to officially open the public
Oh,
hearing first.
Thank you. We will officially open the public comment portion of this one, and we will invite up Brian Hansen, if he's here. Appreciate you coming up.
Yes, thank you for hearing my comments. I have a very specific one on my card, which is, in the big picture for this development, I am a resident in Thunder Mountain Estates, which is directly north across McDowell. I see heads nodding, so you're familiar with the area. My comment is simply that as proposed and as laid out in the preliminary plat, what is planned is atypical for the neighborhood. And by that I mean Thunder Mountain residences that were built in recent years to the north, older residences to the south, and further to the west. So I consider it to be atypical, and the zoning that you're considering today at R15 allows for some very small lot sizes. You're talking about construction in an area that has typically half-acre to 1-acre lots. And so my opposition to the preliminary plat is that I think zoning on the order of half an acre per dwelling is what's appropriate for the neighborhood. It's what's appropriate for what's already established and existing. So from a big picture comment, that would be the point I would like the board to very strongly consider, is that this is atypical. And I am not opposed to the area being developed. I understand that very clearly. But I think what's incumbent upon development for areas, residential areas in particular, is that you have some consistency working through the neighborhoods, and that just promotes greater acceptance for all of the existing residents of what's proposed. So I'll stop there. That's a big picture that I would like you to consider. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Hanson. Appreciate you coming in. Next, we'll invite up Lisa Benjamin. That's what it says, Lisa Benjamin? Is that not correct?
No. My last name is Caruth, C-A-R-U-T-H,
Can you give me your address?
2647 North Waterbury Road.
It says Lisa Benjamin.
It happens. It used to be my last name before I got married. The second time. So,
Go ahead.
thank you for hearing us. I'm speaking for a group of neighbors in the area. And we also have opposition to the density. The RS15 zoning, which is 15,000 square foot lots, I think a lot of us would be okay with that. However, with the builder doing the pad, the PAD over it, they're asking, and I guess may get many exceptions to the RS15 zoning regulations, like instead of 110 feet wide lots, it's 75. That's a pretty big difference. And then the garages and carports, the front yard distance, instead of 30 feet, they're going to be cut down to 20 feet and 12 feet. And then the rear porches and patios are being cut from 30 feet down to 15 feet. And there's other items about where the lot coverage is going down also. So all those items together, which are cutting down the open space around each home on the property and the density with the number of lots on the property. It's just, to we neighbors, it's going to feel like it's very dense, mostly homes close together. So all those exceptions that are in our mind are breaking the rules of the zoning, which I know the PAD allows exceptions, but I think that they should really be considered, not just as one bulk item and rubber stamped. I really would like you to consider those different exceptions that are being asked for, that are really gonna, add to the density and the number of houses closer together, closer to the street, that sort of thing. Thank you.
Yes, thank you for coming in, we appreciate it. Paul Sharp? There we go. Make sure that's the right name.
Yeah, that's correct. 8507 East Mallory. So I live just south of the proposed development, and I understand that eventually it's going to be developed, but again, like the previous folks, I just feel it's trying to be rezoned in Mesa so that they could reduce the size of the lots, as was pointed out. So Blandford in their brochures mentions desert uplands. Well, it's kind of a marketing thing for them to make you think it's a large area, but I think that's going to detract, and it's just not to fit in with our developments around there. I'm in one of the large lots just south, one of the older homes. And the other thing I'm a little concerned with Blandford, I'm also live adjacent to another Blandford development that was put in years ago. And I have to say, the neighbors told me they were promised 1 acre lots and single level homes that were adjacent to our community. Neither of those happened. It just, as soon as they had another meeting, they increased the density and put a lot of homes along our Hermosa Vista Road there. So the only other thing to mention is, I'm just wondering how many homes and developments are going to be put into the East Mesa and still leave McDowell a 2-lane road. I don't know if you've driven down there, but it can be pretty exciting some days. And again, I appreciate you give me a chance to speak. Thanks.
Thank you, Mr. Sharp, we appreciate that. All right, I think that's all the cards I have at this point for this case. I will say also that we have, what's that?
I filled out a comment online, and I'd also like to speak. My name is Jeff Potter.
He was on one side. He's on this side, but it's still the country.
Jeff Potter. I didn't get that one.
The one from downstairs.
Chair Ayers, it was the one that was submitted late online
Oh,
that we
okay, yeah.
discussed downstairs.
Why don't you come on up then, if you can give us your name and address, and then. Did I miss that one somewhere?
Thank you for hearing me. My name's Jeff Potter. I live at 8449 East Culver Street, which is smack dab where this development is going to be. Right now, all I have is a beautiful desert landscaping and area that's out there in front of my view, which also includes a nice view of Usery Pass Mountain and the surrounding communities. I noticed on the developer's petition along Waterbury Street, where Ms. Carruthers lives, all those are designated as single-family homes. And on Culver Street, all those are designated as optional 2-story houses, which would greatly impede my view of the area. Thing I'd like to point out, there is another area, lot that's open that was priorly accessed by the city of Mesa that is being developed by another developer, and it's located on the corner of 87th Street and Culver, over on the northeast corner. It's a 5.9 acre parcel approximately, And the developer that is developing that property is roughly those that he has proposed are going to be 3/4 of an acre lots, which is suitable to the community which we currently have. The proposal that they currently have, like I said, the 29 acres that Blandford would like to develop, I'm not opposed to it necessarily being developed, but the density, even though they started out at 81 and then dropped down to 65, sounds like they've made a big compromise. But in reality, compared to the houses in the surrounding community, that's not a very big sacrifice at all. Also, all the adjustments that they'd like to make to their proposed development, the smaller size lots, the smaller size setbacks, and everything, I think is going to lead to a more crowded and condensed area, and will have a great economic impact as far as lowering the values of the existing homes in the communities around us. So I think that that is, like I said, I'm not opposed to developing, but developing in a manner in which is consistent with the existing neighborhoods is more desirable. I think anybody that, whether it's across from where you may live or where I live, I'm sure you would love to see something of equal value going in and not necessarily a mobile home park per se going into that area. Over on Mountain Bridge community, which was also built by Blandford, you have a lot of beautiful homes, nice sized lots. Adjacent to that, where they built the Montaluna development, all congested. You can go in there and it's like they're stacked up like cookie cutters. That's very inconsistent with the community around. Even in Mountain Bridge there, they have nice desert landscaping throughout the communities and the surrounding perimeter, and everything is much more in line with what would be expected in our community and development. So I appreciate you taking the time to hear me, and that's what I'd like to say. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Potter, appreciate it. Go ahead, I think that was it. And then the last one, I do want to say that we received the petition. There was not an attached letter to this, so we've reviewed that, seen the signatures, but we don't have the attached letter to review. So I don't know if we've gotten that.
It just says we're opposed to it on the top.
I know, but it says there's also an attached letter, so I was just curious what was in the letter, so. But with that, I think what we'll do is we'll invite the applicant up to respond to their public comments.
Is this going? Or do I need to push like F5? Oh, there we go.
Okay.
Board members, Sean Lake, 1744 South Val Vista Drive here on behalf of Blandford Homes. It is a pleasure to be here on behalf of Blandford. As many of you know, Blandford is a homegrown Mesa home builder. Mr. Blandford lives in Mesa and he develops in Mesa and has done quite a bit in Mesa. So it's a pleasure to represent this case and walk you through. I'll abbreviate my presentation to try to hit some highlight points, specifically addressing comments that were raised by the neighbors. Let me just, right out of the chutes before I get into the presentation, talk a little bit about two of them. The first is traffic. We have met extensively with the city's transportation department and the traffic engineer to discuss the traffic on McDowell and alignment of the main entrance along McDowell. The city is, I don't know if somebody from the transportation department is here, but they said that they would probably have somebody. I know there's a lot of people up there. You guys know a lot about traffic. There is more than sufficient capacity on McDowell Road to handle the traffic that will be generated by this. I think they said the capacity is double to what it currently is today, but you guys are the experts on that, but we have worked extensively with the city's transportation department on that. As far as the gentleman dealing with Culver Street, I'm authorized here today just to say, hey, we'll limit the row of homes along Culver to single story as well, and we can update our development plan between now and council should this move forward here tonight to limit those homes along Culver Street to single story as well, like we have along the east side of the project. So staff has gone through the request, and I don't really need to do that. They talked about the neighborhood meetings that we've held. Those of you that are familiar with the site, it's along McDowell and Hawes Road. Hawes would be along the left side. You have the Maricopa County Flood Control District that owns that carved out chunk, and that really is a flood control. I don't know the flood control that rarely sells land, but it's being utilized as kind of a mountain bike area, if you will. You can see from this aerial photograph the trails of where people are riding their bikes and walking in that area, but use that as owned by the Maricopa County Flood Control District. We wrap the site, and you can see kind of in a 7 shape. And then there's also a City of Mesa well site in our upper right-hand corner. Will be doing improvements to both Hawes and McDowell Road pursuant to the recommendations of the City of Mesa and Maricopa County, because in this area, it's county jurisdiction. And so we'll be working with both departments, both jurisdictions to do those improvements as required as part of this development. It isn't, staff went over, it's in the neighborhood general plan. Let me talk a little bit about Desert Uplands. I've been working on projects in the Desert Uplands for a long time, going back to when Lascendis, and there was nothing there. For many of you that know, Mr. Blandford developed in Lascendis. And so I remember a lot of the discussions that went on with the Desert Uplands. The Desert Uplands just isn't that chunk of what I'll call county white in the middle, but it really goes that whole length of property. You can see Desert Uplands is far more encompassing than just a little bit surrounded by this property. There is a lot of property that was part of the Desert Uplands when this was originally adopted. I'm thinking we started working on it in the 90s, late 90s, and that ages me, but I remember going through and talking about the Desert Uplands. So let's talk about the Desert Uplands and what's happened. As many of you know, Mr. Blandford has developed much of the property in the Desert Uplands. And look at some of the developments that have occurred in the Desert Uplands with the Desert Uplands guidelines, Lascendis and Lascendis Mountain. Both beautiful developments, lots ranging from 5 to 10, and then the estate-sized lots. It's a massive development in the Desert Uplands. Mountain Bridge is another project that Blandford Homes represented. Again, lots ranging in various different sizes. I represented Mr. Ward, who developed Madrid, which is adjacent to east when that went through. Boulder Mountain, which is just east of Mountain Bridge. Again, I believe that was developed by Pulte, has lots down into the 7,000 range. You have Sierra and Montaluna. Montaluna, again, was another Jeff Blandford project that was recently approved and developed by the City of Mesa. Then you have Saguaro Mountain and Mount Whisper. So you can kind of get a feel inside the Desert Uplands of the lot sizes that really do exist in this area. And so, while in that county area and in the lot split area, yes, there are very, very, very large lots. But as you annex into the City of Mesa to get utilities, and you develop according to the city standards, you typically see these subdivisions or master plan communities that incorporate a lot of things like preservation of open space, parks, trails, off-site improvements, extension of utilities, connections to sewer, connections to water, a lot of the things that you would typically expect within a city development as opposed to a county development. We understand there's a distinction between the two. We certainly do. But both do exist within the Desert Uplands. And I wanted to point that out because I think Mr. Blandford has done a lot of development in the Desert Uplands over the last several decades or so. Again, staff pointed out when this originally, our first neighborhood meeting, it was up to 81 lots. We went down to 77 for the second neighborhood meeting. Then we reduced it down to 65 lots, reducing the density down to around 2.2. We also increased the lot sizes on this project. You can see along McDowell Road, those lots are 100 feet wide by 150 feet deep, which also is another important project. You'll notice a lot of these lots are deeper. They may be a little narrower, but they're deeper than you typically would see for a subdivision. A lot of times we're seeing these days 110, 120, 130 feet, but these lots are deeper because of the livability that we find with the buyer profile. That they like deeper lots. And so that's where Mr. Blandford has gone in to design a project that has wider lots along McDowell, wider lots along the east side where there's existing residential development that exists there to try to match that, as well as the same side yard setbacks. So as you drive along McDowell, you're going to see the same side yard setbacks here along those lots along McDowell as you do in Madrid. So the separations between the homes, so with the side yard setbacks. With the average lot size here around 12,000 square feet, ranging, as staff pointed, from 10 to 22,000 square foot lots. So a broad, various different colors represent the different lot sizes within the project. Open space in this project is about 24% or almost 7 acres of this project, so quite a bit of open space. You'll notice that every lot, almost every lot, there's a couple, almost every lot backs up to open space, which is unique. A lot of times you have subdivisions where you have lots backing up to lots. You share a common wall. Mr. Blandford in the Montaluna and Mountain Bridge, it was popular to have a lot open space behind lots, and so you'll see how this was specifically designed to have lots backing up to open space, which is another point that really sold well in this area, particularly in Mountain Bridge. I will point out, and staff pointed it out, but I think this is important, the primary ingress and egress is off of McDowell. The access that we show off of the west side is only for emergency vehicles. That is, we talked about that at length in a neighborhood meeting, and we committed not to do that, and so that's only for emergency vehicles off of the west side. Again, as part of the desert uplands, we will also be doing desert landscape salvage, where we go through and identify the landscape on site that will be salvaged, nursered, and taken care of. And so that will happen to comply with the desert uplands guidelines as part of this development. We will incorporate wildlife passages. That was another issue that was brought up at the neighborhood meeting. There is wildlife in this area, and with our open space as part of the project, we will have wildlife passages through the project. You can see where those are identified on our plan and with the red circles, so that wildlife that is in and coming through this area will have passage without getting trapped in. We've updated our pedestrian plan to include more sidewalks within the project, so that staff has this. This is now part of the record as well. And let me just back up real quick. We can update this exhibit. You can see at the bottom right-hand corner, it says denotes single-story restriction, and you can see the stars along the right side. We can, to include those, to be 4 lots along the south side as well. So we can update that exhibit should this council, or should this board move it forward to council and make that part of the record. Sorry, I digress there. Again, we will have parks and open space in addition to the trails and open space and amenities around the project. There'll be an amenity package within the project. I've got some elevations of the homes, but I think I've kind of addressed or tried to address this community and what's going on in and around this project. We think this fits a lot of the developments that you've seen in and around the desert uplands area. Desert uplands is far bigger than just this immediate area. It is a lot of master plans that have occurred within the city of Mesa in the desert uplands over several decades. And we've come to really like them. I think a lot of people who live in the city of Mesa and work in the city of Mesa live in some of those homes that have been built in the desert uplands. And so we all cherish the area. We like the way it's turned out. And so with that, I'd be happy to answer any questions.
All right, is there questions from the board for the applicant at all? Troy.
Sean, what are the, you mentioned widening on McDowell Road for the project frontage at least, what is that being widened to? There were some traffic lane width issues?
My understanding is we'll be adding a lane on the south side.
Okay.
But that, again, I have to permit through Maricopa County, and I have to do what they tell me.
Gotcha.
Right now, we're being told to add a lane on the south side, but I hesitate committing to it, because if the county transportation engineer tells me to do something different, I have to follow what they tell me. But that's what we're anticipating right now.
So McDowell Road is not included in the proposed annexation into City Mesa? It excludes the roadway?
Chairman, board member, the city of Mesa does not annex roadways until after improvements are done, and then and only if the whole road is built according to the city standards. And the north half of the road and most of the road to the east and most of the road to the west are not annexed into the city. So I don't know that the city's going to annex this small strip surrounded completely by county roadway.
Got you. Thank you.
Go ahead, Jason.
Just follow up on that question. So is the right-of-way granted already to the county? Or so to the ultimate width, or will that need to occur?
That will need to occur as part of the plating process and will be dedicated to the Maricopa County Maricopa County, not the city of Mesa, because they're the jurisdiction over the roadway.
Any other questions? All right, I'm not seeing anything. All right.
Thank you.
We don't have any questions right now for you guys. Yeah, you have to fill out a card for that as well. Yeah. All right, with that, I will go ahead and close the public comment and open it up for board discussion. A reminder just on this one, if anyone wants to go ahead and make a motion that you have to include item 6A, including 4C. So is there anything from a discussion wise?
I think just from a discussion point, I think it is worth amending to include those homes along Culver to the one-story restriction. So, no, I'm saying just reducing down to one story.
Oh, to these,
Yep, to match what's on the east alignment there.
because these are simple.
Yep.
I agree with that.
Yeah, just some thoughts on this too. So along the lines of what the neighbors are saying, compatibility with the neighborhood, and I really wrestled with this too on how to make it better, and I appreciate along McDowell, the perimeter of the lots are bigger, along the perimeter to the east and west, they're bigger. The smaller lots are really isolated in the middle, and so there is some extra depth. Yeah, but I definitely hear what the neighbors are saying as I pan out and look at the whole area, and even compared to Mountain Bridge, where the amount of desert landscaping and the spaces are just so much different than this is.
I think I would agree with that. I think one of the things I was looking at though, if you looked immediately to the east, not really far off from a size, from the parcel sizes. And I know we've talked a lot about, for example, like the half acre to an acre. Half acre is, 21 plus thousand square feet. This is actually zoned to a 15, which is a 15,000 square feet. And so their minimum on this one that they proposed is 10,000 something, if I remember correctly, 10,400. So it's not even a half acre. So it is a restraint, but I hear what you're saying, Troy, and I completely understand that as well. That does it fit within it? As I looked around and kind of looked to the housing that was, and again, the adjacent lot directly to the east is actually comparable. Mm-hmm. Any other?
Yeah, so I also am familiar with the Blandford development and just want to speak on behalf of, I know they do very quality development, have a phenomenal reputation in this area, doing a lot of development. I know you pointed out the Los Andes and the Mountain Bridge development and how good quality that is, the open space. Looking at those lot sizes, those are actually smaller than what's proposed here. So this is actually somewhere between what is currently out there on the county areas and between what Los Andes and Mountain Bridge currently have on average. I'm seeing a lot of lot sizes that are along the lines of like 10,000, 6,000, 8,000 when you jump through the Los Andes and Mountain Bridge area. So I think I know that the Blandford development is also very familiar and has actually established the look and feel in this area of Mesa. So I imagine they'd continue on through, and then just seeing some of the renderings, it seems to continue on through with the theme that they have already established in this area. So I do think that although it's smaller in sizes than what's in the surrounding area and the county area, I think it's appropriate. I do also like the offer to address the one story along Culver. So I think that's a great offer. In terms of it being laid out as a site plan from a traffic, so my background is in traffic engineering. It's well laid out. The access point is appropriate. It aligns with the access point to the north. The emergency access on Hawes, those are all very well done, well thought through. Also, in terms of the traffic volumes that would be generated, whether it's a 65 lot development or even the 80 or 90 as they were previously suggesting, those will not add tremendously to the traffic in the area. And certainly the roadways, as Mr. Lake explained, it does have that capacity along McDowell Road. So certainly from a traffic standpoint, it is sufficient. So I will be voting in favor of this development.
Is there any other comments, discussion? Nothing here? I will go ahead, actually, I'll go ahead and make a motion on this one. So in item 4C, Carmelo by Blandford Homes, can't talk today, ZON 23-01003, 30 plus or minus acres located on the southeast corner of North Haas Road and East McDowell Road, rezoned from agriculture to single residence 15 with a planned area development overlay to allow for single residence subdivision. This is staff recommendation here is approval of conditions. And then also on 6A, PZ 24209, Carmelo by Blandford Homes, a preliminary plat, 30 plus or minus acres located at the southeast corner of North Haas Road and East McDowell Road. Staff recommendations, approval of conditions. The added stipulation to reduce to one-story homes along Culver Street, we would like to add that into.
And Chair, what I would do is ask the Planning and Zoning Board to also identify Waterbury as the other location, just to get it into the record as a stipulation on both of those corridors.
So identify other location to Waterbury as well, right?
So essentially lots 5 through 16.
Lots 5 through 16. And Sean, that is understood for you guys?
Absolutely.
Okay.
The lots along Colburn, the lots along Waterbury.
All right, so I would move to that we approve both those items, 4C and 6A. Is there a second? Second? All right, we'll go ahead and vote. And with a 6 yeas and 1 no, the item passes for both 4C and 6A. Thank you, everybody, for coming and providing comment. We're going to go ahead now to move to item 4I.
Chair Ayers.
Oh,
did
yes,
we want
actually, we
to
should
go back to 4A?
Sorry, thank you. That was a long time ago. Item 4A. Is he on the phone?
Chair Ayers, yes, I do believe we had one comment in opposition in regards to this project, along with the applicant has now joined online as well.
All right, we'll give just a second here. So let's go ahead and, Mr. Earl, is he on? And of course, there's a fire truck.
Are you able to hear me?
Yes, we do, Mr. Earl. If you could go ahead and give us your name and your address, and we could hear your comments.
Thank you very much. My name is Lance Earl. I'm at 10,001 Park Run Drive, Las Vegas, Nevada. I represent the owners of the property located at 6005 East Southern Avenue, which is the property that is, borders the Walmart property to the east, sort of to the northeast of this along Southern. There are actually 3 owners. I'm happy to identify who they are, but they're the owners of that property. And we got into this a little bit late and trying to understand it with respect to the impact that it has with respect to the 6005 East Southern property. There are several concerns that we've got that we would suggest would warrant potentially a continuance or a postponement of this, of any decision today. One of those deals with the question of, actually all of them in large respect deal with issues of traffic flow. For example, I think the way in which the truck turning radius is being proposed presents it's a very, very tight radius and presents some issues. The access from East Southern. Looks like the primary access to the fuel station is on the road that is closest to Superstition Springs off of East Southern. It's a right turn in only and a right turn out. And that is, we're concerned about how the flow of traffic will affect that and along there, along with other properties. I've spoken and I appreciate the help that staff has given Peter Vargas on the transportation and Chloe Daniels as well in trying to help answer some questions. He's indicated that there's I guess it's a federal standard or an international standard relating to peak hour trips, and they've identified that for a fuel station and convenience store, it's only 22 peak hour trips per hour. I'd respectfully suggest that when you have when you put a Walmart fuel station, much like a Sam's Club or a Costco, you're going to have significantly more peak hour trips. And so it should be taken into account into how that traffic flow will go. With respect to the 6005 East Southern property, we're concerned that the way in which that property will generate traffic, it's going to increase the traffic on our end as well. And so we're looking at those issues and what needs some more time to really fully analyze what impact that it might have. It seems that if you look to the west, we have an entrance off of Leisure from Southern. And those roadways are going to create, I think, some issues that we needs to be looked at further. Additionally, we're still looking at the grading and drainage plans, particularly as it relates to any environmental concerns relating to putting a fuel station there, given that it appears that our property is down gradient to that property. So our request would simply be that that as a result of these concerns, we'd like a little bit more time to work with Walmart to try to address some of these issues. I'd raised with Ms. Daniels that there is a private easement restriction relating to this that will have to be resolved. That is, I understand it's not part of what you are considering today in the context of entitlements. But with respect to that, I appreciate the time that we've been given. And again, I appreciate the staff response and help in trying to explain what's happening.
All right, thank you, Mr. Earl. We appreciate your comments. All right, with that, we do have the applicant as well, right? What, have we lost him?
I'm waiting for confirmation, but I do believe the applicant, Ryan, is online now and available to answer any questions.
Brian, are you there?
Yes, I am, and thank you for getting me unmuted there. Yes, appreciate the comments from Lance Earl there, and happy to kind of touch on each of those as well. As you guys know, a lot of these items are flushed through or reviewed by city staff, but we also do our own internal ones. So kind of the first item that was brought up there was regarding the traffic volumes that the fuel station would bring. And the other item that was raised was that traffic volumes for this fuel station would be much greater and should be looked at in terms of a Sam's Club or a Costco. Those two examples that were presented are actually quite different from the proposed fuel station. Those would be a club-only or membership-only fuel station, which tries to queue up and bring in traffic in one direction only and does, in fact, see larger volumes. This fuel station here is considered more of a neighborhood fuel station. So similar to something like a Circle K or a Quick Trip at the corner of some various other intersections throughout the city. Yes, it will be Walmart owned, branded, and ran in conjunction with a larger Walmart site. But this is more of a neighborhood fuel station where access to each of the pumps will be from each direction. Queuing will not happen in one direction, and we will not have large queuing piling up in a long line, but rather similar to what you guys would see out on the corner of an intersection. And then regarding the truck maneuvers and traffic maneuvers, as was stated by probably the city traffic engineer, we utilize high technology modeling that requires the latest traffic state and federal regulations to be implemented into the traffic turning modeling to ensure each of these sites functions appropriately. So we've not only done that with the fuel delivery trucks, but also the passenger cars that will be accessing the site and making sure that those do not have any negative impacts on our direct neighbors there. To speak to the stormwater or in quote, environmental concerns, this site is going to be included in the stormwater system that is also linked to the larger Walmart Supercenter. And I believe a lot of these additional outlots actually share drainage features with that Walmart site. So the note that our kind of fuel station would drain into other lots, I would slightly like to challenge that thought and view this drainage system as something that's shared between all of the lots. But for protection, we do provide multiple kind of structures on site to help protect the rest of the storm drain infrastructure against any potential spills. The fuel tanks are double walled as required by state and federal regulations. We have multiple spill mechanisms that would alert staff in the event of a spill, but there's also mechanisms and technology on site to prevent any spills. All the attendants at the fuel station will be educated and put through training if an event were to happen that had spilling of fuel at anywhere on site. And then also the stormwater will be treated through multiple filters and separation chambers with our drywall system. I know that was a lot to kind of quickly run through there, but happy to answer any other further questions there.
All right, thank you very much, Ryan. So with that, I didn't actually officially open that public comment, I guess. We did have that public, so I'll close the public comment, open it up to the board, unless they have any questions actually first.
Yeah, I've actually got a couple of questions for you based on the comments we've received, especially from the Leisure World folks to the north. They were concerned about sound attenuation and light control. And I'm wondering how you're addressing that so that to lessen that kind of an impact.
Yeah, so I'll touch on the light attenuation. So similar to the other outlots next to us, we will have parking lot lighting. And I believe there's actually already existing parking lot lighting out there. But each of those will have specific fixtures that meets the local city code to not allow, I'll call it spillage out towards those residences. Anything that is permitted through the city will need to meet the city code regarding site photometrics and the amount of, I'll call it, foot candles that we can have on site. So each of those, in order for us to get those approved through city permitting, will need to meet each of those codes related to that. And then sound attenuation, we do have an existing small screen wall. It's more of a visible screen wall along the front as well as landscaping. But regarding sound attenuation, there will not necessarily be an increase in sound here. Yes, we all have additional vehicles incoming to the site, but by no means is there a loading dock or something of that sort that would cause larger trucks to be backing up and sitting in a docked area. We will have the fuel truck on site, but it will not be a significant increase in sound there.
And I had one other question. I know that there was one question about the private easement. Is that something that you can address?
So I know the private easement is something the attorneys of the two properties are discussing in regards to how that relates to city code and the applicability of the fuel station design, it doesn't really have any impact on kind of what we're discussing for our review tonight. I think it's just an access agreement between those two parties.
You good? All right, any other questions?
Chair Ayers, pardon me. I just want to acknowledge that Mr. Earl has raised his hand on the Zoom call to try to speak again, but I don't know if you want to give him that opportunity or not. We don't. I just wanted to acknowledge that.
Chair, board members, I think that you may have closed public comment. Now what you're getting is a response to those public comments.
Yeah, we closed that public comment. Okay, with that, we have closed public comment actually at this point. So the board, any discussion or if anyone would like to go for, bring a motion forward on this case?
I'll move to approve case ZON, item 4A, case ZON 24-00426, Walmart Fuel Mesa, 1646, District 6, within the 6,000 to 6,200 blocks of East Southern Avenue, located west of Superstition Springs Boulevard on the south side of Southern Avenue. Major site plan modification and amending condition of approval number 1 for case number Z99-043 and a special use permit. This request will allow for a service station. Recommendation is approval with conditions.
Second.
Thank you, and go ahead and vote on the board. And it looks like unanimously this passes 7 yeas for item 4A. We thank you guys for being online for the comments and discussion. Now we will move over to item 4I that I had skipped before, so. Josh, there he is.
All right, thank you, Chair and members of the board. This is for MCC billboards, also known as ZON 24-00767. It is specifically a request for a rezone from public semi-public to public semi-public with a billboard overlay, which will allow for the development of 2 billboards. It is located at the MCC campus, which is located off south of Southern Avenue, east of Dobson, as well as west along Moore, north of the US 60. The general plan designates this as an education campus, and it is consistent with that as being the campus for MCC. There's a concurrent intra-government agreement for that DA as is required for any kind of billboard, and that's consistent with the Section 25 of the MZO for that billboard overlay, and the request itself is for that rezone for the overlay. Here's the site photo of the eastern location, or rather the western location, and this is from Longmore Way, and then this is the eastern one where you can kind of get that location with context of that radio tower. Here's the overall site plan. It's a 134.5 acre site. Primary access will be from that Longmore to access these. It is 2 billboards. There is actually only a required setback of 0 feet because it is offset by 1 foot that is meeting that requirement. As well as I highlighted earlier, they are 1,000 feet away from each other, which meets also the requirement of the billboards. And in order to be no more than 400 but less than 500 feet away from residential properties of either zoning or use, the applicant did provide a line of sight study that shows that there is limited to no impacts for that residential compared to what is there today. Again, here's that highlight of that site plan showing the context of those 2 billboards. Here's the proposed elevations. And then as part of this process, the applicant did a notification of property owners within 1,000 feet, as well as HOAs and registered neighborhoods in the area, as well as having a neighborhood meeting on September 12th, 2024. Owners were concerned about impacts of that lighting to the billboard. We did provide the overall requirements of the lighting and the required dimming at sunset and to be consistent with our MZO, and this sign will meet those requirements. Based off of that, staff finds that the overall project complies with the 2040 Mesa General Plan, Chapter 69 of the MZO for site plan review, as well as Chapter 25 of the MZO for the billboard overlay. Happy to respond to any questions, and staff recommends approval with conditions.
Thank you, Josh. Is there any questions for Josh from the board? No. All right, we'll go ahead and, thank you, Josh. He's already leaving. So we do have some comments on this one as well. Let me get to this one. Okay, so I think you guys both saw that there's a few on here already that we can read, but there is someone that wants to speak. Do we have anyone online for this one, Alexis?
Chair Ayers, they were going to be in person.
Oh.
Michael Barton.
Michael Barton.
Chair, can you officially open the public
We are
hearing?
going to officially open the public, okay, you come forward, keep them. It's my fault for not officially opening the public comment. You can go ahead and state your name and your address for us.
Michael Barton, 1642 South Saguaro. Good afternoon to members of the board. A little over a year ago, my wife and I were in a serious accident on a dangerous stretch of the Loop 101. Traffic slowed to a stop and distracted driver hit us from behind at high speed. It spun our car out into the car in front of us and then into the lane to the left, where we were hit by a third car at high speed. Happily, no one died or had to be rushed to the hospital, in part because this accident happened on a weekend evening. So why am I mentioning this accident in a hearing about electronic billboards on the US 60? Well, my accident happened in a very busy, complicated stretch of the 101 in Tempe, where cars merge in from Broadway, merge off onto Southern, merge onto the east and the westbound US 60. The location of the proposed electronic billboards is next to a nearly identical stretch of the US 60, where people merge in from Alma School, merge off onto Dobson, merge onto the northbound and to the southbound loop of the 101. It's where drivers need to concentrate, especially on the road, with people switching lanes and traffic stoppages. It's one of the most dangerous places to put a digital billboard on the entire US 60, except maybe where it connects to the I-10 in Tempe. Billboards are designed to distract drivers. Right? Their sole purpose is to get drivers to look at the message instead of the road and other cars. Electronic billboards take this goal to an extreme. They project multiple brightly lit messages that flash from one to another after a few seconds. They're very successful in achieving the goal of distracting drivers to read their messages, or they couldn't afford to offer landowners large payments to host the billboards. Now, I understand that the proposed billboards could provide, well, up to $350,000 or $400,000 per year to MCC. That's a lot of money, right? But is this worth the value of human life or disability? And there are monetary considerations. You know, my accident could have been much worse, right? But some of the people involved had some subsequent medical issues. I have permanent damage to my left ear for hearing. The insurance settlement's currently being negotiated still a year later, but it looks like it'll be more like around $500,000 for all the people and property involved, right? But if a much worse accident were to happen on the proposed US 60 location during rush hour, MCC and Mesa could be faced with multi-million-dollar lawsuits with claims that they permitted dangerously distracting billboards there. As a Mesa citizen, neighbor, and a university faculty member, I strongly support funding for MCC, but not from billboards that put human life and property at risk, and also risk significant monetary costs from accidents that happen as a result. So thanks for listening to this, and I hope you'll seriously reconsider the location. I'll say one last thing. During the community meeting, one of the engineers said, we have no evidence that electronic billboards cause more accidents. But as a scientist, we say, like, lack of evidence doesn't mean you have evidence of absence. And that means just because you don't know, you don't have evidence that billboards cause accidents, doesn't mean you have evidence that they don't cause accidents. This could be a test case, but I'm not sure if Mesa really wants to carry out the experiment here, so thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Barton. We appreciate you coming in. All right, do we have the applicant? Oh, there you go, okay. I can't remember who's online, who's not. No.
Mr. Chairman, I think I've got a short presentation here that I'll just get teed up, but I don't even know if we necessarily need it. And I may have to ask for professional help. Oh. I think I've got it. I did something right today, everyone. Mr. Chairman Ayers, members of the board, Reese Anderson with Pew and Lake. My address is 1744 South Al Vista, number 217 here in Mesa. I'm here today on behalf of the Maricopa County Community College District. With me is Leanne Bond, Chief Operating Officer. She's seated here in the audience. Also Robert Budak, who's the Vice President of Administrative Affairs for MCC, and Jacob Zahn with Becker Billboards. All of us are available to answer any questions. I had the pleasure of meeting Mr. Michael Barton at the neighborhood meeting back in September, and it was a pleasure to spend some time with him and answer his questions to the best of our ability. And I can give you more information about the proposal if you'd like, or I can just limit my comments to the specific issue that he raised. Mr. Chairman of the board, I defer to you. I don't want to take any more necessary time than is necessary.
You want to speak to comments? It seems like that's kind of the comments, I think, is. Yeah. Okay.
Keep it to address Mr. Barton. Yeah. I have the greatest respect for Mr. Barton, and again, it was a pleasure to meet him and his wife at that neighborhood meeting. The interesting thing about that argument made by Mr. Barton, with all due respect, is that no one should have billboards anywhere in the United States or the world for that matter, just because they run a risk. But here, as you see across the valley, there are already electronic billboards in a lot of jurisdictions. And how do they exist? Why do they exist? Why haven't there been litigation with those? And the answer is because the Federal Transportation Safety Board and the rules that are made up by them, as well as the state, specify what the frequency can be, the light, et cetera. And these billboards comply. And the Mesa Ordinance complies with those standards too. And so what you see in the Mesa Ordinance is a mirroring of those federal standards. And so while we all admit that there can be distractions while driving, these billboards comply with the applicable safety standards already. So while there's always a risk, there's a risk with everything that we do, this one complies with those safety standards. I'll leave it at that.
Thank you.
Okay?
Appreciate that.
If there's any other questions, I'm happy to talk about anything else.
No, I think we're good.
Okay, if you do want more information about the safety standards, we'll ask Jacob Zahn to come up, but thank you.
Okay. All right, with that, we will go ahead and close the public comment and open it up to the board for discussion, or if anyone would like to make a motion. No discussion on this?
Maybe just a comment, just for the record. I think, excuse me, it bears noting that while certainly I'm grateful that Mr. Barton, thank you, I was about to say Becker, Mr. Barton is safe, and his wife is safe. I think it's also maybe a commentary on the unfortunate situation that our community colleges find themselves in, that they have to go to these measures to find funding to be able to support their students and support their initiatives. So to that end, I support the districts being innovative in finding these funding solutions.
Anybody else on the board? I would agree with that as well. I think when I was thinking about it, again, Mr. Barton, I appreciate it as well. It's one of those situations where I think that a lot of us, and I would actually be typically thinking along the lines of kind of common sense would be that electronic board on the freeway would be distracting. However, I think as the Planning and Zoning Board for the City of Mesa, I don't necessarily think that we have the ability to go against, the National Highway Trade, Safety Board or those things that have decided to make that. So with that, I will think that I will be in support of this one moving forward just because of that. I think that unfortunately it's kind of beyond us, but I do empathize. I completely understand that perspective and point of view. But at this time, I think from where we are, where I'm sitting, I think I echo your comments as well, Chase. So unless anybody else has anything, go ahead.
No, then I'll make a motion to approve ZON 24-00767 MCC billboards. That's 134.5 plus or minus acres located at the southeast corner of South Dobson Road and West Southern Avenue, rezoned from public and semi-public to public and semi-public with a billboard overlay to allow for 2 billboards. This staff recommendation is approval with conditions.
Is there a second on that motion?
I'll second.
All right, everybody go ahead and vote. And item 4I passes unanimously with everybody here. Thank you to all those involved in being here today. We appreciate that. Let's move to item 4J. I invite Sean up, who's been patiently waiting.
Good afternoon, Chair, members of the board. This is the case for Banner Gateway Residences, ZON 24-00752. So this request is to rezone the subject property from light industrial to multiple residence 4 with the planned area development overlay. Also includes site plan review, and that is to allow for a multiple residence development on the site. So the site itself is east of Greenfield Road, west of Pierpont Street, and on the north side of Banner Gateway Drive. It's approximately 10.5 acres in size and is currently vacant. To the west and south, you have existing multiple family developments, and then to the east, you have the Banner Rehabilitation Hospital. Further east is the hospital itself, the Banner Gateway. So the current general plan character area of the 2040 general plan is employment. So that's intended to provide a wide range of employment opportunities. Examples include, but not limited to, manufacturing facilities, indoor warehousing, and business parks. The proposed character area per the 2040 general plan is mixed-use activity district with a regional scale district subtype. So commercial is obviously the focus of that character area, but it does support secondary uses so long as they don't encompass more than 30% of the whole character area. So multiple residence is specifically listed as a secondary use within that character type. So currently, again, the zoning is light industrial. The proposed zoning is RM4 PAD. I'll get into the PAD deviations in a couple slides. Multiple residence is permitted within the RM4 district. So this is site photo looking north from Banner Gateway Drive. And then here's a snippet of the site plan. So the applicant's proposing 8 buildings ranging in height from 2 stories to 4 stories, 260 total units with a density of just over 27 dwelling units per acre. There's a central amenity area with a fitness pool, clubhouse, other related amenities shown in red on the site plan in the center of the site. Primary access is from Banner Gateway in the southwest corner, and then there's a secondary access point in the southeast corner for fire. 546 parking spaces are required per code, 548 are being provided, and then 261 of those will be covered. And then here's a snippet of the landscape plan showing perimeter landscaping, foundation base, and streetscape landscaping. This was looked at by the design review board last night at their work session and had no comments on the proposed design. And then here's a rendering of the clubhouse and surrounding buildings. The design review board also had no comments on the elevations. So for the PAD, the code requirement is actually 40 feet. The maximum code, or the maximum height requirement for RM4 is 40 feet, and the applicant's proposing a increase to 55 feet to accommodate the 4-story building. We also have a requirement for building separation related to parking canopies. That minimum separation is 20 feet. The applicant's requesting a reduction to 10 feet. So property owners were notified within 1,000 feet, and a neighborhood meeting was held on October 30th. No public attendees were present at that meeting, and staff has not received correspondence since. So overall, we find the request complies with the 2040 Mesa General Plan, Chapter 69 of the MZO for site plan review, and complies with Chapter 22 of the MZO for a PAD overlay. Our recommendation is approval with conditions. Happy to answer any questions.
Thank you, Sean. Appreciate that. I know I don't believe anyone's here for public comment. Do I still need to open and close it?
I have a question.
Oh, go ahead. Actually, let's do that first.
Sean, so the parcel just south of the Banner East Rehab that's to the east of this parcel, the vacant parcel, is there a site plan approved for that, or is there a use designated for that?
Chair, Board Member Peterson, so yeah, directly south of the rehabilitation hospital, not the whole site, but a portion of that site is developed with the home away from home, so it's the...
Oh, that's the one that...
Yeah, the units that are owned and operated by Banner for the cancer patients.
Yeah, that's right. Okay, yeah, I remember that coming through. Okay, thank you.
Okay, anything else for Sean, guys? Was here? No. All right, thanks, Sean. So I'll go ahead and open. Is there anyone here that wants to speak to this besides the applicant?
They're with me in the back.
All right, come on up.
We'll just nip that one right in the bud.
Just me.
Just yourself, all right.
Good evening, Chair, members of the board. Brendan Ray, 1850 North Central, here on behalf of the applicant Oakdale Realty. We're certainly excited to be talking to you about Banner Gateway Residences. We have been involved, since I got involved, in a number of discussions with staff, collective staff, particularly planning and economic development, and talking about the land use, the appropriateness, layout, design. We certainly appreciate Sean's presentation and their staff report and the recommendation for approval. I will correct him on one thing. At last night's DRB hearing, it wasn't that they had no comment. In fact, they were very complimentary of the design of everything that we had done from a design perspective. And so I'll jokingly correct him on that one point. But as we look at the site, you guys are certainly familiar with it. It's 10.5 acres. This is one of the last patches on the patchwork quilt. And as we look at it, the area is full with employment, commercial and residential uses. And so what this is the textbook definition of an infill development. And you can see that there are a number of constraints on it. First and foremost, obviously, it's its shape with a narrow, deep parcel. There's no visibility from any arterial streets, as is obvious. It has limited visibility from the US 60, again, because of how narrow it is. It has limited access from the collectors. The only access to this particular parcel is from the south, from Banner Point, and that kind of magnifies the narrowness, the depth of it, that makes it really challenging to figure out what's a good viable use on this, again, last little patch or hole in the donut, whatever you want to call it. And so as we've talked and thought about it, we believe that the multifamily really is the only logical land use that makes it viable and as we go into the future, especially as you look at it. You guys saw the zoning map. You guys are very familiar with it, but I think what's important to understand as well as we look at the light industrial designation is, as indicated in your staff report, it's been zoned light industrial since 1986. That's 38 years that this parcel obviously was part of a much larger parcel at the time. It was approved, but the entire area has developed around it, leaving this kind of, again, orphan piece with it. And the last action, as indicated in your staff report, was taken in 2018. There was an application. I know there was comment in the study session about multifamily before. There was an application that was filed in 2021. That application was withdrawn, and I don't believe it was ever presented to the board. At least that's what I could see from the records that were indicated in visiting with Mr. Sean Lake, who was the one that filed that application. So I don't know that that was ever presented to this group. At least the records don't indicate it, that it went much further than discussions with staff. So I know that one of the questions that came up in the study session, as you look a little closer at the site, you can see Banner on the south and access out to Greenfield. There is a traffic signal out at Greenfield, and likewise, if you follow it across that greenish area, which is the town of Gilbert, as you keep going over to Higley Road, I know there are traffic signals at both of those locations that allow it. But as we look at, we had a traffic engineer look at this from a trip generation standpoint, and I know we talked morning and night, but in an AM peak, which is, as was discussed earlier, kind of the busy times, there's best guess 129 trips that morning, and that study was actually based on 280 units. So we're now proposing 260, so a little bit less than that. So 129, and in particular in the AM peak out 99. PM, similar, we got 157. I can go into a lot of detail as we look at it, certainly in context with it, and we don't have the little one-story home away from home that's been built out there up against our east property line, the west side of Banner. But one of the things that I think is important to note as we kind of look at this, and I don't know if you saw it in your packet or not, but we do have a letter of support from Banner Health, which is a little bit atypical of zoning cases to receive such a letter from an organization. But as you can see there in the fine print, and I kind of emphasize kind of the best point, which is on that second page on the right that Banner has said that we believe this is the most compatible land use adjacent to the medical center operations. And we are grateful for Banner's support, their public support, and willing to write a letter such as this in talking about their operations. And I'll leave it up. I see some of you trying to read it. I apologize, the font's so tiny on my little presentation. But with that, again, I'm happy to answer any questions that you all might have, but we are, again, appreciative of the time and effort that staff has taken to work with us. Again, we believe it's an appropriate land use when we look at it and when we look at the surrounding area. It is a good, viable solution on a very challenging infill piece, and we would recommend your recommendation for approval in accordance with staff's.
All right, thank you, Mr. Ray. Any questions for the applicant from the board? I'm not seeing any. No? Okay, I think we're good. So go ahead and open again public comment. I don't think there's anyone. So we'll close public comment and open it up to the board for discussion or a motion.
My concern, as mentioned in the study session, was originally this came before us a couple of years ago. It was, I can't remember either if it was withdrawn or if it was considered.
I feel like it was continued.
Yeah.
Like we okayed one and then the other piece.
I think the concern is that economic development at the time wanted it to remain a potential employment area. And I think that would still be a good thing to preserve, that this should be available to be an employment area. That's what it's zoned for. My concern about, the changes, I know that part of the consideration is about what has changed in the plan. What's changed in the plan is there are two other apartment complexes within the vicinity. If you look at the apartment complexes from Baseline to Southern to Higley to Greenfield, this would make 10 apartment complexes in that area. I think there's just an oversaturation of density in this area, and so I would recommend that we do not approve this.
To staff, has economic development weighed in on this or any comment?
Chair, board members, yes, we've had several conversations with our economic development officer, with the director, with the staff on this project, and it being moved out of the light industrial zoning designation.
And there's no opposition?
There's no opposition, that's correct.
To the discussion of potential employment, I mean, one would normally think some sort of a medical office type product, perhaps, right, to be adjoining to the Banner campus, but clearly it appears that hasn't occurred. As the discussions that did occur with economic development, be they current or previous, was there any discussion around targeted employment or any specific sectors that were trying to be attracted into that area?
Chair, board members, I don't know if I can speak to the specifics of the targeted industries that they looked at for that site, but what I would say is that this letter is actually to Jay O'Donnell, our Director of Economic Development, the one from Banner Health, so they're supporting something that economic development is supporting in this area.
Understood. Okay, thank you.
Yeah, so just thinking through just this area in general too, and I recall a couple of cases on the other side of Higley over by the medical school there, and some additional multifamily or other uses because the medical uses, and it's with the time duration, I don't know if the medical uses are kind of built out what they originally anticipated, or kind of what was there, but that's my recollection with those, is that it feels like, and I hear what Jason said earlier too, that this site, it's back out of the way. Frankly, it's a little bit hard to get to. You have to want to get there because that road going to Greenfield isn't, you have to know where you're going. It's a hard one to accidentally get to from a business frontage perspective. And trying to think in my head, like Jason, what you were saying earlier about what's a more compatible use or what's a more viable use, and I'm not sure what that is.
I'll chime in since we're all kind of chiming in at this point too. Same thing, guys, I'll be honest too. And as I go through and look through, you've got Greenfield, you got Higley, significant commercial employment. I don't really know what would be best back in here. There is a significant amount of medical office along Pier Point, which is a little bit east and south. I do not see the hospital moving over this way, obviously, at all. I don't think they're gonna go this direction. If anything, they would actually go to the other side of Higley for their growth, but they've already kind of said that they weren't going to be doing any of that. So at this point, I don't see any other use that really makes a lot of sense on this site. I will say, I don't necessarily have any issues with the apartment complex, but I would really hate to live in a 4-story without an elevator. So I feel sorry for the people that are gonna be living on those 4th floors, but. It does. Yeah, oh, it does in those? I didn't see one in the plan. Okay, well then, never mind, negate that comment, but.
Dude, use the stairs, you live longer, man.
You call me fat, Troy? But anyway, I think as far as I'm concerned, I know what you're saying completely, by the way. I completely get it. I just don't really see what else makes a lot of sense, so. Unless, Jamie, I think you're the only one. If you don't want to say anything, just let me know. You're good, okay. I'm just gonna go ahead and make a motion on this one because I think everybody's itching to boogie. So on item 4J, so when 24-00752 Banner Gateway Residences, 10.5 plus or minus acres located approximately 1,350 feet east of northeast corner of East Banner Gateway Drive and South Greenfield Road, rezoned from light industrial to multiple residence for with a planned area development overlay and site plan review to allow for multiple residence development. Staff recommendation here is approval of conditions. I would move to approve item 4J as well as, oh, actually, never mind. We don't, oh yeah, 5A. 0124-00894 Banner Gateway Residences minor general plan amendment, 10.5 plus or minus acres located approximately 1,350 feet east of the northeast corner of East Banner Gateway Drive and South Greenfield Road, minor general plan amendment to change the general plan character area type from employment to mixed use activity district with a regional scale district subtype, and staff recommendation here is approval of conditions. I would move to approve both item 4J and 5A. Is there a second on that motion?
Second.
All right, and we'll go ahead and vote. And with a 6-1, this item 4J and 5A passes. All right, thank you everybody for being here. Anything from staff?
No updates, additional updates, thank you.
No additional updates. And so I look for a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Second?
Second.
All in favor, please vote. All right, and we are adjourned. Thank you, everybody.